are certainly preparing for what will be a major.
What? You ready? Let me get your bottle.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Whatever Wednesday, which is actually our very first scheduled program episode. So this should be fun starting this off. And don't mind my crazy hair, as always having a bad hair day, but I save a lot of money from not cutting my hair. I can't even remember last time I have, which in turn fuels the hobby and the addiction. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a quick run through of kind of what my upbringing was, what got me in the hobby, those kind of things. And then I'm also show you guys a slideshow, because a picture's worth 1,000 words, so I figured we'll do a old-fashioned slideshow and let you see what happened like throughout the last year or two, and building up the fish room and whatnot. Give you guys a visual. So I guess let's begin. I'm a Gemini. I was born in the early 80s, so that was actually a pretty good time to be raised up. I got a little bit of the old school methods, and then now a little bit of the new school methods, so kind of a melting pot there, which I enjoy. So I'm always trying to learn, always trying to grow, trying to evolve. My parents got divorced when I was real young, so I didn't really remember that. But they both got along, which was great, and remarried, so always had 2 Christmases, 2 birthdays. I was always cool with that. Never had a problem with that. And they're always great parents. They'd let me roam outside in the country, creek. I lived in the city, lived in the country. Always catching stuff and sticking it in a tank when I was younger. And going through elementary, I actually ended up going to a different school every year. So kindergarten through 5th grade, I was at a different school for each year. So that actually developed a lot of my character too. Then middle school and high school, I actually got to stay at the same school, which was kind of nice. And a whole different change of pace. My mom, she was a registered nurse for a private firm. Unfortunately, she passed away when I was in the 5th grade, and that was kind of tough. Really became kind of a lone wolf after that, which my parents were there, my dad and my stepmom, and they did a great job. But yeah, it made me really appreciate life and really try to strive to do the best I can every day and not take it for granted. And I mean, times get tough a lot, and you just gotta count your blessings, because it could always be worse. But she'll always be in memory. And my dad, he's an engineer. He's working in a metal fabrication shop, which he engineers like all tolerances, and I guess he designs a lot and fixes a lot. I guess he's kind of the go-to guy there. And my stepmom, she's a computer programmer, so she got me into technology a lot. We had the internet when it first came out. That was great. So I always had a good tool there in front of me to be able to learn and just even play games and whatnot. I love video games. So that's a whole nother chestnut. I actually quit playing video games, and now I try to collect real life points. This is kind of like a video game to me. And instead, it's more interactive, instead of just clicking and clacking and just getting fake points. It gets old after a while, after you beat so many games. But anyways, on to it. She's real cool. They're all nature people. My stepdad was stationed at Fort Campbell. He was 101st Airborne Special Forces, Green Beret. He went to Desert Storm, so I got to experience all that military life, and which was cool. He was a cool guy. I don't see him often, and that's unfortunate, because he is a real nice guy. he taught me a lot. All my parents all taught me a lot, just in different forms. So it was really kind of nice. I mean, you don't appreciate it when you're a kid, but when you get older, you do. You see what they are trying to say, and I can only try to do that with my kid. And let's see, I got a brother, and I've got a half sister, which unfortunately I don't see them very often either. And my brother, he's got, let's see, 4 kids. 3 of them are boys and 1 of them's a girl. Let's see. Now, what got me into aquatics was my dad always had a fish tank, and like I said, I was always in creeks, throwing stuff in fish tanks and all that, snakes, crawdads, fish, whatever, just to watch it. And it was, I mean, a lot of kids did that back then. And when I was little, supposedly, I think they said when I was around 4, I put Kool-Aid in my dad's Oscar tank, because I guess I thought they were thirsty and I killed them. I don't really remember it, but that's what they tell me. I always kind of felt bad about that after they did tell me. But yeah, anyway, it said my dad always had aquariums, and then I had aquariums going up through middle school, high school. High school, I can't remember. I don't think, I may have had one like a year or 2 there. And then went to college, ITT Tech, and for graphic design, got an associate degree. I did have a job in high school working for this place called Bi-State Helicopters. And while I was at ITT Tech, I ended up working at Walgreens for a little while, and daycare for a little while. The only stipulation was I wouldn't change dirty diapers. So it was kind of cool gig. It was kind of like being at recess because they needed help. I had some friends that needed help, and so I did that for a while I was going to school. So school and work, and the whole time it wasn't easy. I didn't get much sleep, but that's kind of what trained me to do what I do now, because I mean, I rarely get any sleep. Like, let's see, yesterday it was split in. I got 2 hours of sleep, and then I was up for a couple hours, and then 2 more hours of sleep, and then now here I am. But anyways, I love what I do, so that's what keeps me driven. And my son's the same way. He doesn't like to sleep. He's a sleep fighter, and yeah, it's just must be genetic. And one day at ITT Tech, they were having a career day, and I was going to get a hold of this place called Closet Concepts because they were hiring. I saw a listing somewhere, and I actually got out of class, and right there as I got out of the corner was this booth for them. So the owner was actually there. I talked to him, got an interview, and that's what got me into construction. And I actually stayed with him for about, I think it was about 12 years. Which, he treated me good. I mean, I wasn't making, it wasn't easy work, which I'll show you guys kind of what I did in the slideshow for Closet Concepts. But yeah, it wasn't easy work, but I learned a lot from being on all the job sites and seeing what everybody else does, and just with the background of my architecture, design, and engineering, mechanical engineering, multimedia design, pretty much anything in this world is based on design. It has everything has design to it. But yeah, with all that together, that really gave me a lot of construction influence, and I actually tried to get my real estate license, or I actually got my real estate license for a while too, but I decided that wasn't really my cup of tea. I poured quite a bit of money into it, which was kind of rough and really pushed it tooth and nail. I actually went on the road and retiled a super Walmart with my brother to just scrap up enough money to put me through the real estate classes and all that stuff. But yeah, it ended up wasn't my cup of tea. So I mean, even after throwing myself into it like that, I put the brakes on it and I went back into construction. And about this time is when I actually got a tank again, and I decided I'm gonna work construction and just kind of see where life goes and not try to force my hand, and just life was playing out, you know, going with the flow. And so I ended up getting a tank, a 29 gallon, and I ended up creating this this tier with the plexiglass, and then had some clear tubing, so it was like a just flat part and then like a double layer, because I was hoping the fish would swim underneath it. Well, yeah, they didn't even end up swimming in it, so I ended up scrapping all that and went to the fish store, and looking around, I'm like, what am I gonna do now? And I see this little section where they have plants. I'm like, plants? Never thought about that. And because my parents, nobody back then, they rarely did people keep plants in the aquarium, and at least that I knew of. And I ended up buying an Amazon sword, creeping Jenny, and some Bacopa. And the Amazon sword ended up getting huge and looked like a big tree in the middle, because those are just tank busters. So it took up like the whole 29. I had it planted right in the middle. So I had the creeping Jenny on one side and the Bacopa on the other side. It was actually a kind of neat tank. I wish I could find a pic of it. There's a pic on MySpace somewhere, but I don't remember any of my information to even get on that. So that was years and years ago. I ended up getting on MySpace, and like 3 months later or 3 weeks later, Facebook came out and everybody quit MySpacing. So yeah, so it took me forever to even get on Facebook because of that alone. I was like, I'm not even bothering with it. But anyways, I figured out you could put plants in a tank, and that ended up getting me on Google and more, and because I was always researching stuff. So I started researching plants and all that, and find planettank.net, and that I learned so much from that forum. Like, it was so active. There was always a lot of good people, good information on there. Actually, a local guy named Yoink, Joey, he helped me out a lot. He already had the collectoritis, and he actually had some shrimp, the cherries and crystals, which he would give me RO. He helped me hook up CO2, all that stuff. And once I started doing that and got some of his plants and trims, it just started snowballing. So I ended up setting up another 10 gallon and actually got some Golden Wonder Killifish, and they're actually pretty good size for them. They're like a metallic yellow, really bright. I was like, wow, I didn't realize freshwater fish could be this beautiful. So I decided to learn how to breed them, and actually did, which is crazy because I ended up taking the babies away and saw a depression in the killifish, because I have a lot of empathy for living things, and I kind of steered away from breeding fish, and then that's what got me into shrimp more. And yeah, after that I started, you could only get crystals and cherries then, and then it wasn't until a couple of years later, which I ended up taking a hiatus. I ended up with 4 tanks, and then had to take a hiatus for a life change, which was a relationship that didn't work out, which was a blessing. And ended up taking a hiatus. Kind of had my tanks going, but like they were just sitting. So some would go like 6 months without water changing. So I started learning like the tolerance of fish and shrimp and plants, and just creating a natural ecosystem without the need of filters and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of like, which is my main approach with planter tanks here. Which most of my tanks, they just have sponge filters on them, and yeah, I mean, I do high tech, low tech. It all depends on how fast I want to grow my plants, how much time I got to do maintenance, because if I'm growing plants fast, I got to maintain them, I got to trim them, all that stuff. But yeah, after that hiatus, ended up getting back into it a little more. Got into an apartment, settled down, and had a tank in the living room. And then I met the love of my life, which now I have a kid with, and she was cool with the fish tank. She actually set one up herself, and she let me use the second guest bedroom as a fish room, which was real cool of her. And that kind of snowballed, so I started selling plants again, started selling shrimp, and then at that time they had all the colors coming out, so I was getting the orange, yellows, aura blues. I remember all the tigers were all started coming out, because, well, actually I just discovered they were, after that 2-3 year hiatus or whatever, they actually ended up making a bunch of stuff out of them, or finding more. And then I did that for a while. Lived there for a year, I think, a year or two, I can't remember. Time's a blur sometimes, because there's always so much going on. Then after the year or two, we ended up getting a house, so then I had to move all my tanks in and actually collected, I can't remember how many I had, like maybe 13 or 14 tanks at that time. Finally got a bigger size one, a 75 gallon, which I thought that was big, and then moved up to the 180, and I love big tanks. I would rather have bigger tanks if I had the room, but the collectoritis, it kind of keeps me with a lot of 10 gallons, because I do like to keep a lot of different stuff. And that also brings me to always be hobbyist over business. I mean, I do have a lot of tanks and all that. I do sell, but not everything's always for sale. A lot of it I just like to keep. It just, as long as I can keep the bills paid, roof over our head, and fish fed, and maybe a new tank or two here and there for fish, I'm happy. So it all works out with that. And since we did get our new house, it took me a couple of years, because this house actually needed a lot of work. We got it on a short sale, so we got a really good deal on it, like half of what it's worth. But it needed a lot of love, and thankfully my construction background helped with that. But yeah, it took me probably about another 2 years to get back into it. And then I just started building tanks, which I'll actually run through a lot of this now that we're caught up, last couple years in the slideshow. That way you guys kind of get a visual of it now that we're all caught up. So let's begin the slideshow. And I know this is kind of a lengthy video, but I am over 30 years old, so it's kind of, it'll take a little time to smash all that into about an hour. But yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying, and thanks for watching. Dream big, always dream big, because even if you fall short, you'll always be farther than where you were. Here's a picture of my parents, my brother, and I. We're the ones sitting on the floor. This was way back. This is a picture of my mom. It was always hard to get a picture of her because she was always hiding from the cam. She didn't like her picture taken. But as you can see, she's got books and notes all around her. She was always working. my brother and my sister and his youngest, Jillian. Starting to grow the beard there. And then this is my buddy Joe. I also like to let loose every now and then, have a good time. This was at a fish concert. And his wife Kathy, they are my family and my best friends. And of course that was my lady. And this is my desk. This is what my desk looks like now. As you can see, I got papers and stuff everywhere. Notes, 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 more notes. A heat gun, drill, tank. Gotta have a tank on there. And some other projects for stuff coming together. And yeah, here's some nature shots of a creek, kind of like the countryside I used to grow up in through middle school and high school. Pretty neat rock formation there. That was actually natural. I didn't make that. That was just laying there like that. And yeah, I like to get out, and even though it's been a while since I've done all these fish tanks, but heck, it's like having nature in my house now, so it's cool. I'm not mad. And this is what my fish room looked like after I got done moving into the house. You see, I only had a few tanks there compared to what's going on now. And set up my first barrel outside and ended up running it all winter long. You can see there's snow there. I had a heater in there and it stayed up in the 80s, had dwarf neon rainbow fish, and I was pulling out pictures of babies like all winter long. Because that wood actually kept it insulated, and you can see the moss was still kind of growing on top, even has snow on it and everything. But this is what possessed me to start working on this outdoor heated pond system, which I got done in the fall time, so it was just brand new in the fall, so I had to do the first winter with it with fish and plants. So that was interesting, and it worked out pretty well. Was able to keep it warm enough, even though I got -17 at one point. And I'll end up doing a build video on that sometime. But this is why we ended up getting our house for cheap here. Is you can see there's just water always collected back here. I guess it would just flood and swamp through the garage and stuff, so nobody wanted to buy it. And I noticed sticks circling in one area, so I went out there with a shovel, and under about 6 inches of dirt and grass was that drain right there. And so I ended up digging it out and made this nice little mud hole. And this video is actually of a duck. We'd have a pair of ducks that would come and just do whatever they do in this water, bathe in it and feed on worms and whatnot. It's kind of hard to see in this footage here. Alright, now you can kind of see them there. Now, I haven't seen the ducks this year, but I think it's because we have all those cats that go outside now. I think they did come by at one point in time, and then they kind of left after they realized there were so many cats. But yeah, this is what it looks like after the drain gets clogged up and you unclog it. This was like February. It was still freezing cold. Had to jump in there and just unclog it. Another picture of it, or a video of it filling up, swirling. It's kind of neat when it does it. All them little raindrops. I want to eventually do it up, but I still gotta wait to afford the rock. It'll be a while till I can afford to actually do anything with it. But I'll probably end up putting koi in it and stuff. I have rocks around the edges and the front kind of slope in, and then a couple waterfalls in there, and a little pier that goes over the hatch I want to do. As you can see, I mean, water just rushes in through the yard here. And it actually comes in a couple different directions. But this is its main flow. Then over off the side here. Wintertime, you gotta clean it up. And then here's some of my books. I mean, you can see I get into a lot of stuff, different stuff. That's just a section. These are my computer notes. It's just I gotta work for days for the to-dos, so it'll be years till I even catch up with it all. I've always been a big fan of looking up at the sky, taking pictures, just feeling a connection with nature and stuff. It's wild how it's actually it's in our core, it's in everybody's core. Just some people choose to ignore it. On construction sites and job sites like this one at the barn and that one downtown, there's always a good opportunity to get good photos of the sky, just landscapes, lots of color and stuff, different cloud formations. This is my first biggest tank, big-ish tank. It's a 75 gallon. And it came with this Anubius. It's probably like a quarter of the size of that, but it just kept growing and growing. So I'm like, I'm gonna need a bigger tank, and got on Craigslist, and then found this behemoth, this 180 gallon. That's a 75 next to it, bow front, and that's what that Anubius looked like. Finally got some room for it to stretch out, and yeah, this setup really hooked me pretty good. I put a lot of love into this tank. I got a really good deal on it too. I only paid 500 bucks for it. That standalone would go for 500 bucks, let alone the tank. So, I mean, I jumped on that offer as soon as I could. But yeah, this tank actually sprung a leak not too long ago, and had to re-gut it, which is actually its second time leaking. But I actually have a video in memory to this tank on here, but it will be resealed eventually. May take a while. And this is Closet Concepts, where I used to work for about 12 years. We'd haul all this stuff up and down driveways like this all day. And sometimes we'd get upstairs and realize that somebody took the stairs out from under our feet. But when we get it up there, we'd put it all together and start making closet systems that look like this. And we got to work in some neat areas, neat houses, and gave me a good idea of good real estate, like good places to live, stuff like this. This is a personal project at my house I built. Also did garage floors, which this was a pain, grueling work. We hand grinded them for a while there. That was not fun. But yeah, on one of the job sites, came across this pond here. This is a spring-fed pond that's in Indiana. I can't remember if it's called Lemon Lake or Lamb Lake, but it had a lot of aquatics in it, and I wouldn't mind getting a house there sometime. So I keep these pictures. This is a job I did with my neighbor. It's we used this tile to look like wood out on the concrete. This was actually my first tile job I picked up. It went pretty well. And this is I used to build some racks for this horse barn for the same lady. Another side project. Kind of what got me into building, helped with my skills with building fish racks and stuff like that. It was a pretty neat area to work too. But yeah, I do a lot of side projects while I was working at Closet Concepts like this. These are some monkey bars I did for a project one time. That was kind of unique and fun to do. It was in a hallway for kids. And other small projects like casework and just remodeling. And this is my girl, my love, the mother to my child. After we were together for about 3 or 4 years, we decided to have this baby shower with all our family and decided to have a kid because it was more commitment than marriage. I mean, a kid, that's a commitment for life. The backyard actually caught on fire that day. Snow. But no, I'm just kidding. It was a bonfire we had out there. It was a pretty neat night. Snow all around us, but then the fire was keeping us warm. And the house was packed. It was a good time. Then, not too long after, this little bean came out. And that pretty much changed my world. I just quit my job like not too long before he came out. I didn't really have anything saved up. I knew I was going to have to stay home with him eventually and just make stuff happen. And with working construction and all that and having fish tanks going, I was blessed to make it. I was blessed that I'm able to do what I do. And I mean, it's not easy. That's why I pull all-nighters. That's why I work all the time. But baby Frankenstein, he's why. And there's my cats, Kitty and Sparky. They were the 2 that we had for the longest, and then Kitty had 3 kittens, so now we're up to 5 cats. And our kittens were aptly named Squeakers, Scrunchy, and Squirt. Squirt the smallest, Squeakers, she's always talking. Scrunchy had scrunchy ears. Then I started adding some tanks. This is 125 long, 20 gallon long I added. Then got rid of a lot of my oddball stands and started sticking them all on these newly constructed stands, which I actually just built on top of the ones that I already had created. And I added a few tanks in there too, a couple new 40s. That was an interesting build, trying to build those on top of there. I actually have them placed in there with metal rods. And my little bean started growing, getting old, starting to chew on his thumbs. And this is one of my commercial jobs I worked on. We were building this huge kitchen, like a commercial kitchen for this showroom for this distribution company. And we used to go to this place and then get these po' boys and New Orleans style food. It was pretty good. Paparoos was the name. It was a fun little spot. And yeah, built up this wall, and I worked with a neighbor and a friend of mine, which that's my neighbor there. We tear out the floor and put down another floor. And we got to break stuff, tear down walls. That was always fun. Did always have to put stuff back. I actually put this lintel in all by myself. I learned a lot from that job, actually. Just how to do stuff in a more of an industrial manner. Pretty much beef everything up. And yeah, just some of the projects I would do. Which this is my neighbor. He's a pretty fun guy. Him and I were on a lunch break. He's my drinking buddy. Whenever I get downtime, we'll hang out. We also did a lot of maintenance there too, working on odds and ends around the warehouse, which was pretty neat too. Learned a lot about distribution facilities. We'd also build side projects. This was for a chicken stand warmer that you'd see at like a gas station. This is my horse show ribbon box project I was working on for a lady too, which you'll see more of that later on. And then my buddy, he started kicking around. He's getting his legs moving, starting to get them arms figured out. I pretty much watch him all week, besides in the middle of the week. Luckily his Grammy comes up and watches him on Wednesdays and Thursdays and Friday mornings. That way I'm able to get a lot of this fish stuff done. I mean, I don't ever take a day off because really just don't have time for it. But I mean, I wouldn't change it for the world. Just being able to stay at home with him and get to keep all these tanks. It's a lot of work, it's stressful, but I love it. I'm addicted to it. I can't help it. And this is what our living room used to look like when he was still a baby. You'll see what happens. And its feet aren't even touching yet. Just a little guy hanging out. He'd hang outside with me. This was when I was working on the pond a lot. He'd just chill out there, I'd do my thing. He wasn't always cooperative, but he loved to get in the fish tanks. He loved to check them out. And he's addicted to water too. I think he'll probably follow in my footsteps. If it rains, he wants to go outside and play in it. Anything to do with water, he's about it. He also loves his motors and mowers and anything with a motor. He is car obsessed, that's for sure. More progress on this ribbon show box. I could have mass produced those, but it took forever to build, so I decided not to. As you see here, he's starting to finally lift himself up. And he figured it out. You can tell, he's like, oh boy, I'm up. Watch out, Dad. And then I started adding more to the fish room. Added a rack of 40s there, and started doing some minor details, and ended up adding another rack of 20 longs. And then the next thing I know, he's holding himself up. He's getting big quick. Then I decided I'd get a little nostalgic and took a break and play a little Oregon Trail. It was only for a day or two. Classic. And while all this was going on, I was still working construction, so I was doing fish tanks, construction, and watching Wesley. This was an office we were adding. Then, next thing you know, he's starting to roll around. And he's about to get out of his area. That's when I started stepping up my shrimp game even more and had to start bringing in more tanks. And there he goes. He's going for it. Oh, he's off the mat, so it's time for stroller rides. He's starting to get to the edges moving. Spray painted backs. And this is my old utility room, what it used to look like. I had tubs in there and I had a bunch of shrimp and plants and stuff in there. And actually began to upgrade it into this. That's what all those tanks were for. So finally upgraded that section. Same night that I was tearing this all down to build all those new racks was actually the same night that this 180 sprung a leak. At like 9 o'clock at night, I ended up staying up till 8 o'clock that morning, or 9 o'clock, maybe even later. Look at all them MTS. These were some of my biggest fish that were living in there with all those orange shrimp and stuff. Ain't he a stinker? And then not too long after that, Kitty had her 3 little kittens. Our house got just a little bigger. Added some tanks into the garage. A couple 125s and 240s. This is his first swing ride at Brett's Fest. That was that summer, so he's about 6 months old here. We figured if he's old enough to swing, he's old enough to try some steak, so that was his first steak. She doesn't eat a lot of it. And that's the 40-gallon and 125s in the garage. Then I actually started switching out a bunch of my tanks in the fish room and added all these 10 gallons instead to fill my collectoritis need. As you can see how bare these tanks used to be. And shipping started to pick up a little more, started to be able to put a little more into the hobby, which was nice. There's that horse show ribbon box that was under there. At this time I was still working, doing side projects, and doing the fish tanks. So it was nice that the Aquatics was finally rolling for me and allowed me to do what I love. The tank's in the utility room, and ended up adding a 40-gallon up on my shipping area desk there. 125 longs maturing with the rainbows. Added 4 tins up on this 75 stand. Fish room's maturing. Added a 125 high in the bedroom. It's looking good. And more progress on the showroom, our ribbon box, which all I've got to do now is stain it, make it look good, get that out of there. And he's starting to get into stuff already. And about this time I start realizing more into my shrimp tank, mixed shrimp tank that I've had for 5+ years. All these different wild types, because I was so busy I wasn't really looking at them or anything. And I had green jades in there that I created and all kinds of crazy stuff. So that started getting me into the shrimp mixing projects. Oh boy, now he's starting to crawl around. And he's picking himself up. Just the other day he was just opening a drawer. Now he's crawling around and picking himself up. They sure do grow fast. Now this is one of the unique shrimp I found in there. It's a pink shrimp, which that's like one of the only of its kind that I've ever seen. There's a nice orange Riley. I was starting to collect more different types of Neos. These are some greens I created, which they're hard to see in there because, well, they're green. See how well he blends on that corkscrew valve. Let's see here, some more pigs. If you see in the center there, you can kind of see the pink in contrast to the red. We'll zoom up there for you. I haven't seen any since then though. I wish I could. I wouldn't mind seeing some more. Underneath that yellow is a green. It's just so green he blends in with that algae so well. And this was all from that mixed tank that I had for a long time. I actually upgraded all these shrimp into a 75-gallon mixed tank now, since this was my oldest tank and I didn't want to lose all this good genetics. And these 4 tins are finally mature, which I actually removed all those because they were sagging. Had to get rid of the stand. Finally, this horse show ribbon box thing is done. Finally get it out of my garage so I can stick more tanks. It was a fun project and it turned out really nice. And I mean, the lady I did it for was real nice. I was planning on mass producing these, but after I built one, I was like, I don't even want to do it again. I was like, I want to stick with aquatics and start heading that direction and steer away from construction. But yeah, it was a nice box. I was pretty proud of it. It was an easy project. Now he's starting to get into everything. He has no fear. Kitties! But yeah, we do have a lot of fun together. He's always hamming it up. The ultimate sleep fighter. He'll go to the end. Then here I go, getting more tanks. You can actually see some shipments and some sump filters for the pond in between them as well. Can't even remember what rack that's for. Oh, there, that's what it's for. The fish room. I liked all those tins and needed more space for more stuff and more projects. Also added this rack in the garage here as well. And it's time to upgrade some fuses for the pond outside. Actually put a couple in for it because it's got 5,000 watts of heat. Nice little half and half Neo, which they're pretty neat. Rarely see them. It's first day out to a restaurant. And here is a yellow Riley, which these are really rare, hard to come by. Blue-red Riley, started getting into more different, crazier types of Neos. More breeding. more mixing. Finally learned how to lay back and relax, which was a nice change of pace. This is my Nano with the green orange Riley. Finally got the 180 resealed. Still doing side projects on the side. Finally gets to try pizza. Mom let him try some pizza. Little dinosaur feet. And it's hard to see in these pictures, but this is when I saw my first purple. And I actually seen quite a few purples throughout the last year or two. I just haven't had time to line it. But this is one of my favorite shrimp right here. It's an orange Riley with a red spot. It's really unique shrimp, and I don't really have any others like it. Sparky and Wesley napping together. He's standing tall now. More shrimp breeding and lining. Got the tanks up in the fish room, all the tins replaced. The ones in the garage are looking good. Utility rooms are maturing, looking good. Really getting my shrimp game up. Lots of different types. Now, out of all construction, this is the craziest piece of wood I've came across. Looks like a line space there, and on the back of it looks like a desert. So it's like a line in a desert, all on the same piece of wood. I had to save that piece. Still sits on my office. Kind of crazy. And added another rack into the garage, and this is adding another rack in the office as well. This is the biggest rack I have. I think it holds somewhere near 30 tanks. A lot of 20s, a lot of 10s, a couple 75s. That was quite the build. And of course, all those racks need more tanks, and they need more substrate. Substrate galore. My delivery guy loves me. And he's walking. What in the world? All of a sudden he's already walking. 9-year-old. And it begins. He loves reading his books though. He really does. And this is his first Christmas, which was a fun time, as Christmases normally are. And he's a running. He's a walking. Finally got my tanks up on the stands. And it's his first birthday. He's good at sharing already with his papa. And finally got tanks on that stand. Water in it. And in the garage, got that going. So yeah, that's pretty much it for up till like 2015. And because his birthday was December 30th. So I'll send you guys out with a video of my son playing with the cats, just for the fun of it. Thanks for watching.